Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin the funeral services of Mr. Louis Z. Koch. Rabbi Lizzie Heidemann from Mishkan will be officiating. Just as a last and gentle reminder, please be sure your phones are off, and we welcome those of you who are joining us via live stream. Earlier, the rabbi performed the ancient ceremony of Kriya privately with the family, so now we're going to begin the funeral service.
Thank you all so much for being here. I want to invite you to repeat after me the words our tradition offers us in acknowledgement of the moment a dear loved one has passed. You can just repeat after me. Baruch, Dayan, Ha'emet. And that means blessed is the true judge, or the judge of truth. There's an ancient handbook of Jewish wisdom known as Pirkei Avot, Lessons of the Ancestors. And it relates the following set of aphorisms. Ezehu Chacham, who is wise? Halomed mikol adam, the one who learns from everyone. Ezehu Ashir, who is rich? The one who is happy with what they have. Louis Zelig Koch mastered and modeled these ideals of truth-seeking wherever one can find truth and living with a sense of abundance, of having more than enough, till his dying day. As he was gathered to his ancestors this past Shabbat, in the days leading up, having his children and grandchildren and brother and their spouses by his side, and of course, his beloved wife of almost 60 years, Joanne. And I am, and we are all here today to support you, and so sorry for your loss. We love you, and we know how you loved Lou. May his memory be a blessing for you. The text goes on, this text of Pirkei Avot. It says, Ezehu michubad, who is honored? The one who honors others. So we are here today to honor and pay tribute to the life of Louis Zelig Koch. And I'm going to share kind of the broad strokes and themes of his life, and then his children, Lisa and Rachel and Josh, are all going to speak from their unique vantage point about their singular father, their wonderful father. And like everyone, he wasn't perfect, but he loved them unconditionally and loved their partners, Michael and Dan and Jane and their children and his grandchildren, Zach and Sophie and Anne and Samantha and Matthew and Rose and Olivier. And he loved more than anything else in the world, Joanne. Also the news. He loved the news. Ezehu Chacham, who is wise? The one who learns from everyone. So Louis was born August 11th, 1935, to Blanche and Sidney Koch, and he had a voracious curiosity about the world and a love for people that followed him throughout his life. He grew up in Hyde Park, surrounded by a large family full of funny, playful immigrants, jokesters. He shared a bedroom with his younger brother, 7 years his junior, Michael, and connected with the many uncles and aunts and cousins that both lived in Chicago and in Los Angeles. His mother, Blanche, was a concert pianist and instilled in Louis a love of music from a young age, a love and appreciation of Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and later jazz. He loved listening to her play. She was fancy sometimes. She enjoyed nice clothes and jewelry, which makes the following story particularly funny. Her family moved to LA, but for a long time she didn't like flying. And so when they would visit her family, they'd go on the train, and she would bring with them items that they couldn't yet get in Los Angeles in the early 40s, like deli food, including smoked fish and deli meat. And so this fancy lady would schlep pounds and pounds of smoked fish across the country, infiltrating every car on the train with the stench or stinky aroma of smoked fish. Louis's curiosity about the world and love of people, assuming they were good people, followed him into the profession of journalism, where he started his career writing freelance articles and book reviews and eventually signed on with the renowned press agency, the Chicago News Bureau. And many of you may know these stories. He met and became close with well-known reporters, including Seymour Hersh and Mike Royko. He developed his own career in TV production and had his own talk show At Random, followed by Byline, and had a career in TV news writing. He came alive around controversy and had a confidence and a comfort interviewing intellectual, high-powered people, and he interviewed many of them: Malcolm X, Gore Vidal, Barry Goldwater, the head of the Truckers Union, and so many more, and he held his journalistic cool with all of them. This was a quality that would come to impress the woman he was destined to marry. During those days in the late 50s and early 60s, his young bachelorhood, he loved the buzz and hum and pace of the smoke-filled newsroom, people at their typewriters, cracking the story, getting it in under the wire, and then going to the bar with the other writers after putting stories to bed. He enjoyed a good party. Perhaps it was because of the frenetic pace of this life that when he met the young, aspiring playwright and publicist, Joanne Shapiro, she didn't think that Louis would be the marrying type. However, after sweet-talking his way on the phone with this young publicist into a launch party for one of his favorite authors, Nelson Algren, he arrived at the party, and they got to talking, and he knew that his happiness, his true happiness, was going to come in building a life with her. And as they talked, they clicked instantly, and he pursued her for somewhere between 9 and 14 days, depending on who you ask, before proposing marriage on a romantic helicopter ride over Chicago. Joanne agreed, provided they could have a long engagement. And they did, relative to the time they had known each other up until that point. 6 months later, they were married. And from 1964 forward, Lou and Joanne spent the rest of the 60s building their family and their home, having Lisa, and then Rachel, and then Josh. They lived at 343 Dodge, a home that would remain a place of learning and laughing and intellectual banter and newspaper reading and books and friends and April Fool's Day pranks for decades. Louis continued the hustle of reporting during the early years of parenting, covering radical politics in Chicago, covering some of the biggest stories that happened here, including the police violence and protests during the Democratic National Convention and the killing of young visionary Black Panther leader Fred Hampton. He was, in fact, the first to report on his killing as a calculated assassination by the Chicago police and not just a shootout. He always took up the cause of the underdog, the one with less power and privilege, the one being hunted by the government. He liked sticking it to the man. And he transmitted these values to his children in his home, at the breakfast table and at the dinner table and on the weekends, and as they read the newspaper together. And he would quiz them on Sunday nights about what they'd read that morning. Extra points if they'd read from the New York Times, fewer points if it was from the comics section. Ezehu Ashir, who is rich, the one who is happy with his lot, with what he has. Louis's true happiness was fulfilled when at the turn of the next decade, the Tribune hired him and Joanne to write a new kind of column, switching off co-authoring weekly reflections on the challenges of raising a family that honored the post-60s spirit of feminism and equality pervading the country that he came by naturally as he supported and loved Joanne's ambition and intellectualism and the fact that she was a playwright. And they believed that their experience was a kind of microcosm of what was happening in America, and they believed that they could help people process along with them. And so this column was called Family Lib, and it was syndicated by 200 newspapers across the country by the Newspaper Enterprise Association. These are the words from the obituary his family wrote about Family Lib. What emerged from those years was an extraordinary body of writing, helping millions find solid ground amid the shifting sands of gender roles, sexual norms, and family arrangements, of the frustrating give and take of marriage, as much as its transcendent joy. And no one could argue that the love that Joanne and Lou had was not transcendent and powerful. And they wrote, as a writing team, they co-authored The Marriage Savers in 1976, which, by the way, I looked it up. You can still buy it on Amazon. A college sociology textbook, Marriage and the Family, and the 6 Parents in Touch books, 1 million of which were distributed in the state of Illinois in 1990. So the text I mentioned earlier, Pirkei Avot, it actually goes on and mentions other qualities of a good life as well. For example, Ezehu Gibor, who is strong, the one who restrains his impulses. Overrated. Lewis looked for the good in people, and he loved good people, which was most people, but he didn't waste his time with people whose negative overshadowed the good stuff. He didn't abide people who abused their power or authority or treated anyone as less than the dignified human being they were, regardless of race or religion or socioeconomic class. He had a soft spot in his heart for the underdog and the little guy, including some controversial and unsavory little guys. But he did not abide authoritarianism or abuse of power or Donald Trump. He had some choice things to say about anyone who dared to intimidate or be mean to his children or grandchildren. F you and the horse you rode in on. Or F him. He didn't abbreviate. I'm just being delicate. His relentless celebration and love and encouragement of his grandchildren is something they all cherished. You're the best at that sport, he might say, and if you do something else, you'll be the best at that too. His grandchildren relished their rebellious grandfather in the ways he encouraged them to embrace risk-taking and cheered them on. It's especially gratifying that he got to meet and also know and love Zach's fiancée, Ani, in the last years, and begin to imagine adding another generation to his beautiful family and legacy. The text ends by saying, if you walk this way in the world, learning from everyone, finding joy and satisfaction in your lot, living from a place of abundance and sharing it with everyone around you, ashrecha v'tov lecha, then you will be happy and it will go well for you. The text then asks itself, as Jewish texts sometimes do, why use both phrases? You will be happy and it will go well for you. Why not just suffice it to say you will be happy or it will go well for you? Why say both? The text then answers itself. Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh v'tov lecha le'olam haba. The person who lives this way will be happy in this life and all will be well for them in the next life too. May all be well with you. Lazar Zelig, Ben Socher Vabela, Louis Zelig Koch. May your soul that has lived both the frenetic, fast-paced life of a newsman and the slower, more domestic pace of family life and of retirement finally find its rest and its peace. Lisa.
Thank you to Lizzie for those beautiful words. Thank you to everybody that's here supporting our family. I'm so grateful that we all feel so surrounded by love today. And in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take. This lyric has been in my head since I realized that my father was getting ready to make his final transition at 87. This has been a week where I have had the gift of seeing God's hand more clearly in the infinite love and mercy and kindness that has surrounded my family as we came together. Oh, sorry, Mom. Let me try again.
From top.
This is hard. All right. Can you hear me, Mom? Yeah? Okay. Do you want me to start from the beginning? Okay. And in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take, which is a lyric from the Beatles, Mom. This lyric has been in my head since I realized that Dad was getting ready to make his final transition at 87. This has been a week where I have had the gift of seeing God's hand more clearly in the infinite love and mercy and kindness that has surrounded our family as we came together to be with Dad. I got to experience the purity of my father's love for me. His last words to me were to comfort me as he saw I was distressed. He asked me why I was sad, and I told him that I was sad because he was sick. And he said to me, "Oh, I'm so sorry, and I love you so much." That was the last full sentence he spoke to me, and it was a gift. He said it so clearly and emphatically and kindly. It was the pure kind of love that all parents have for their children in their heart, uncomplicated and true. We both got to be our best selves during a difficult time, and I'm so grateful for that. My father lived a rich and abundant life filled with gratitude. His favorite prayer was Dainu. It was always enough. Dainu is a prayer where we say it would have been enough. And Dad always felt like that. He loved Mom and my siblings and me so much and shared his favorite things, with all of us: books, music, art, and a love of the city. We went to concerts at Old Town School of Folk Music, we made art projects at the Art Institute, and we went to Second City, even though we probably weren't supposed to. Culture and creativity were so important to both of our parents, and they generously shared it with us. My dad also loved to stir the pot, as my Uncle Michael reminded us. I have great memories of dancing wildly with my siblings to the soundtrack of Hair, knowing that my friends didn't know as many swear words as I was hearing on that album or from my dad. We grew up with Free to Be You and Me, and my parents actually interviewed Marlo Thomas, which I thought was so cool. We read Where the Wild Things Are, and Dad was okay with us being wild things. He made up stories for us that kept us enthralled and begging for more. Dad taught me how to drive like a reporter, getting to the story. He helped me be confident and aggressive in driving and in life. On Sunday, the family activity was to read the paper, and the sooner we graduated from comics to the New York Times op-ed, the more he respected and listened to us. He taught me to form opinions and back them up with facts that I could discover by reading. He taught us all how to read and write critically and question everything. That was a gift. He loved justice and freedom of speech. He always rooted and identified with the underdog. He cared about my mom and her career so much as he cared about his own at a time when women's careers and creative development were not valued. His heroes were people like Lenny Bruce, Studs Terkel, Angela Davis, and Abby Hoffman, to name a few. He taught us all to play poker and bet with confidence and swagger. He also taught us how to find the tell, and we were always looking at his eyebrows. He loved to see the appalled look on our grandparents' face when we asked them to play a 7-card stud Jack's Wild for money. He was always stirring the pot. Dad was fiercely in love with Mom for 60 years, starting with the day he met her in 1963. Their love for each other was so clear to everyone who met them. It was their pride and joy. My parents both valued Jewish traditions, and they found a loving Jewish community at Beth Emet. They joined the young Chug and reveled in the decades-long friendships and shared Jewish traditions. Dad picked Beth Emet because Rabbi Polish, our founding rabbi, marched with Martin Luther King. We had Shabbat every Friday night that I can remember with our grandparents and sat at the table discussing current events. Dad loved my husband, Michael, and welcomed him warmly into our family once he was sure that his intentions were good. Michael and he shared a love of scotch and good steak, and they would have dinner together when my mom was out of town. They loved to share Chicago gangster stories. I think my dad was surprised how much joy he got out of being a grandfather. He had 7 grandchildren, each of whom felt uniquely seen and loved by him. He was a great cheerleader, as I shared with him the night before he passed with Rabbi Lizzie. Listening to the grandkids tell Dad how much they loved him and felt his love of them during the last rites that Rabbi Lizzie performed on his last night of earth, his last night on earth, was an example of the abundance he had in a life well lived. He showed us the richness and complexity of what a life well lived looks like and leaves a legacy of shared family values of tikkun olam, repairing the universe. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful to share this with you. I will miss him terribly and will carry him in my heart.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. So Rachel's going to come up.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Can you hear me okay, Mom? Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Okay. Not blast your eardrums. I'm so glad there's Kleenex up here. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to celebrate my father's life. I'm just going to say a few things, and I'm sure if I see you in the next couple days, I'll have some good stories. I'll be a little more together. Rabbi Lizzie quoted from the obituary that Rick Perlstein was so kind to help us write and wrote so beautifully, and specifically pointed to in the Family Lib column how they really kind of had their finger on the pulse of changing time, and that was really meaningful. My dad was kind of before his time, and I just wanted to highlight within the story of him meeting my mother that she spoke a lot in the last few days about what a big deal it was that he saw her for her whole person. And at that time, that really wasn't at the top of the list for a nice Jewish girl to find a husband. The potential husbands weren't necessarily all about the potential wife's ambition, creativity, and talent, and hopes and dreams in the world. And he was. And my mom won't say it, but I will. There was a pretty long line of suitors. In fact, when I met Mike Royko, he might have mentioned my mom in a way that made me a little uncomfortable. The thing I want to stress today about my dad that was so special, I think for so many people who encountered him, was that he saw your, like with my mom, he saw your full self, whatever that was, and made it okay to be weird, to be a little bit of a weirdo, you know? And I think a lot of people go through life feeling like they have to pretend to be someone that other people expect them to be. And he always made you feel that it's okay to be a weirdo, and it's kind of cool. And so for that reason, instead of trying to express that in my own words, I thought I'd read this poem by Delmore Schwartz, which is a poet my dad loved a lot, who was also a weirdo. And just a sec. And I feel like he would get a kick out of it. The poem is called "Dogs Are Shakespearean, Children Are Strangers." Dogs are Shakespearean. Children are strangers. Let Freud and Wordsworth discuss the child. Angels and Platonists shall judge the dog, the running dog who paused, distended nostrils, then barked and wailed. The boy who pinched his sister. The little girl who sang the song from Twelfth Night as if she understood the wind and the rain. The dog who moaned, hearing the violins in concert. Oh, I am sad when I see dogs or children, for they are strangers. They are Shakespearean. Tell us, Freud, can it be that lovely children have merely ugly dreams of natural functions? And you too, Wordsworth, are children truly clouded with glory, learned in dark nature? The dog in humble inquiry along the ground, the child who credits dreams and fears the dark, know more and less than you. They know full well, nor dream nor childhood answer questions well. You too are strangers. Children are Shakespearean. Regard the child, regard the animal, welcome strangers, but study daily things, knowing that heaven and hell surround us. But this which we say before we're sorry, this which we live behind our unseen faces, is neither dream nor childhood, neither myth nor landscape, final nor finished. For we are incomplete and know no future, and we are howling or dancing out our souls. In beating cymbals before the curtain, we are Shakespearean. We are strangers. I love you, Dad.
And now we'll hear from Josh.
Mom, can you hear me okay? Louder? How's this, better? That's better, okay. So thank you everyone for being here. For those, you all know my dad, and no matter what the subject was, he loved having the last word. Well, not today. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to turn this into an airing of grievances. That will be saved for the next Festivus, which I'm sure you will all attend. There was not a lot of in-between with my dad. He didn't just casually skim an article on a subject. He devoured material from multiple sources, educating himself to the highest level possible. So great was his love and respect for the power of the written word. He was all or nothing with people too. If he didn't like you, you just weren't on his radar. But if he liked you, he loved you. He didn't give you a gentle pat on the back, but he wrapped you up with both arms, gave you a mighty squeeze. He didn't give you a little kiss on the cheek. He planted one with such a resounding smack that it echoed throughout the room. I'm not saying that caused my tinnitus, but I'm not saying it didn't. He didn't casually toss something on the grill. From preparation, lining up the exact number of charcoal briquettes on each side, the number of which I'm not revealing today, to timing the various stages, to the second, the man was a Rembrandt, the Rembrandt of the Weber kettle. He would defy laws of physics, somehow fitting 15 whole chickens on a 22-inch grill, all while cooking each and every piece to a level of perfection I am still chasing today. If you were lucky enough to have him as a friend, there was nothing he wouldn't do for you. And if you called and asked for help or advice, he would be at your door before you hung up the phone. When I wasn't sure what direction to go to, as a teenager, he found a summer program for me at Northwestern University that turned out to be absolutely life-changing, and I'll always be grateful for that. Helping someone thrive was one of his greatest joys. I could go on, but I want to end at the beginning. One of my earliest memories is when all of us would pile into the bed for a family cuddle, which Dad would invariably proclaim, "Our nest is best." His unshakable love for his family was one of his greatest gifts that I will keep with me forever.
In the time that we spent together preparing for this moment, I actually feel that I undersold the barbecued chicken, that we haven't spent enough time talking about it or how he made it, although now I understand it was quite a mysterious and secretive process that he took with him to the grave. But Josh, I wish you good luck in replicating it, and now you have something to aspire to for the rest of your days. I'm going to ask us to stand as we read Psalm 23. I'll sing through the Hebrew, which is not on this pamphlet, and then we can read this together. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yishovev yancheni b'magle tzedek, למען שמו גם כי אלך בגיא מוות, לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דישנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויי. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. You can join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest between the shelter of your wings, among the holy and the pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to the soul of Louis Zelig Koch, who has gone unto eternity. God of mercy, bring him under the cover of your wings, and let his soul be bound up, not just in the bonds of eternal life, but in the bonds of the living. May you, God, be his possession, and may his repose be peace. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהרים כזוהר, הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת לייזר זלג בן סוחר ובלה, שהלך לעולמו. בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. We all say amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Shalom Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 1700 West Grand Road in Arlington Heights. The Shiva today will be at Beth Emet, the Free Synagogue, at 1224 Dempster Street in Evanston from 4 to 8, then at the Cook Residence at 343 Dodge Avenue in Evanston, Wednesday and Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Please note the information about the Shiva coordinator, memorial contributions in his memory to the Southern Poverty Law Center or the ACLU. For those of you who are joining us via live stream, all that information is on our website. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not text or speak on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. At this time, I'd like to call upon the people that have been asked to serve as pallbearers to come forward as we escort the casket of Louis Z. Koch, along with the pallbearers and the rabbi from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars. Please rise. Olivier.